published an article called Confessions of a Hopeless Optimist, which you can find on my website. So it's been a great week for my thesis of optimism. Let's start with the negative predictions of expert analysts. We're talking about people dying, so I know we can't really call this good news, but here goes. When I wrote my article, the Imperial College projected 2 million U.S. deaths. Last week, the White House model downgraded that number to 61,000. There weren't any further downgrades this week, but I did notice something that I hadn't seen before. The original Imperial College study also estimated the impact of mitigation strategies and said that it might be possible to reduce deaths by half to 1 million. So it appears that social distancing has also saved us just about 940,000 more lives than had been expected. In the end, it appears that this disease will be just about as deadly as the flu and pneumonia, which will kill just about 55,000 Americans this year, and will remain nothing more than a drop in the bucket of the 3.8 million people worldwide who have already died this year from all communicable diseases. The White House is also using a model to estimate hospital needs, which continues to overestimate the number of projected hospitalizations, even after doing a major revision on April 8th to allow for the impact of social distancing. The very next day, their model overestimated hospitalizations in every state except for 4, and in some states was over 50% off. The hospitalization rate has been lower than expected almost every day, and now appears to be peaking in many states. Even in New York City, Governor Cuomo said that the net change in hospitalizations on Wednesday the 15th fell to the lowest level since the outbreak began, and the number of ICU admissions and intubations saw a significant drop. A look at the net change numbers in New York City, which are the number of daily new hospital admissions minus the people who were discharged, we see that the net numbers were lower on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, a day which the net number was negative 600. I also warned that the worst projections would be sensationalized by the media, who would only report the scariest news. So this week I watched an expose of a scary media report featuring a nurse intubating a sick patient in a busy hospital ward. When the video was shown in super slow motion, the clip revealed that it wasn't a human patient at all that was being treated. It was a mannequin. Yes, a mannequin. My main thesis is that in most crisis situations, the game gets changed by human ingenuity. Some more great news this week. Our ground war of social distancing continues to show signs that new cases and deaths in the U.S. are rolling over and daily counts are slowing down. This week, the White House and many states began the process of mapping out a process for returning Americans to work and school. On the medical front, there are now 70 vaccines in development and 3 which are already in human trials. One vaccine expert in the UK this week suggested that she is 80% confident that a vaccine will be ready as early as September. Several therapeutic drugs are either in human trials or being used already, with hundreds of anecdotal success stories of people who have been cured. In particular, a drug from Gilead Sciences is showing great promise. On Thursday, news got out that a Chicago hospital that's conducting a study of this drug in 113 severely ill patients saw rapid recovery in symptoms, with almost all patients discharged from the hospital within 1 week. In particular, it appears that the doctors on the ground are learning things every day about how to defeat the virus. This week, there was a growing belief that many virus deaths are the result of the patient's own immune system kicking into overdrive. There's still much to be learned about this, but it could have major implications for understanding the right proteins which might work. There's also a growing number of doctors who are suspicious that the use of ventilators may in fact be causing more harm than good, possibly related to this immune system phenomenon. If this is true, it could mean major improvements in how we're treating patients, and also could alleviate the ventilator shortage. Finally, Abbott Labs announced this week antibody tests will be ready to roll out in large numbers, and they think they can test 20 million people in the month of June. This would be an enormous development, as antibody tests will tell us who has already been infected, which is critical information for reopening the economy. As for the equity market, the S&P 500 had another good week through Friday morning. So far, as of Friday morning, the market has successfully held on to its monster gain from last week and is actually up just about 2% for this week. Long-term equity investors have a lot to be optimistic about because the big sale in stock prices is still on, and it's not too late to buy equities at bargain prices. Over my 30-year career, it's been rare that I've seen a time when the expected returns from equities are so far above the so-called risk-free rate of return. Think about this. In February, the S&P 500 hit an all-time high of 3,386, and today it's trading around 2,800. So when do you think we might see 3,400 again? Well, based on the facts of history, the average bear market in the history of this country has taken 40 months to recover. Even after falling 57% in 2008, the S&P 500 was back to even within 4 years. So it's at least reasonable to expect that we'll see 3,400 on the S&P 500 by the summer of 2025. I certainly wouldn't bet against it. If that happened, it would be a move of just about 21.5% or roughly 4.25% per year, just if the market got back to even. I believe it'll do a lot more than that, but that's just if it got to even. Add in another 2% a year for dividends, and you have a total return of just about 6% per year. Although 6% is just kind of a so-so return, what really matters is the spread between this possible return and the so-called risk-free rate of return. Given the historically low yield of 0.6% on the 10-year U.S. Treasury, that spread is now wide enough to drive a Mack truck through it. The stock market rarely offers you an opportunity to own or buy more stocks when their returns compared to the risk-free rate are this attractive. I urge you not to miss that opportunity. I know that you are probably now reading very intelligent-sounding articles that are discussing the new normal in the world economy and how the economy that emerges from the quarantine will look nothing like anything we've ever known before. I know these articles sound smart and very compelling, and they're scary as hell. They make it sound more like we might be all living in caves in 5 years, and I'm sure they make you look at me like I have 3 heads when I suggest that the S&P 500 could be back to 3,400 within 5 years. I urge you to remember, the presence of these articles is how you know you're in a bear market. I know these articles like the back of my hand, and I've read hundreds of them in my career, because this is the kind of opinion press that always starts to emerge in a crisis, every single time. Presence of articles like this is the most reliable sign that uncertainty, fear, and panic are at their peak. They have historically also been markers of the moments when those investors who can remain rational have always had a tremendous opportunity to take advantage of those who are gripped by fear. Because the new normal economy that has always emerged from times like this has always been bigger and better and more rewarding for patient equity investors. Everybody loves to quote Warren Buffett, who counseled us that we should be greedy when others are fearful and be fearful when others are greedy. It's easy to repeat cliches like this when times are good. It's a whole different ball of wax to put your money where your mouth is when times actually are fearful. Those who have the temperament to take advantage of this time will be well rewarded for years to come. Be of good cheer, my friends. This too will pass, and no matter what, nobody can argue the fact that we are now 1 week closer to the end of this crisis than we were last Friday.